Everybody, and welcome to the Inside Groove right here on Northwest Access TV. I'm your host, Nick Mumley, alongside Dustin Tanner. How you doing tonight, Dustin?
Oh, we're doing good. Wonderful Monday, coming off of Michigan race weekend, which was actually Sunday, which I got wrong last week. But going into Bristol weekend, Bristol night race is one of my favorite races.
One of the best races of the year. We got a lot to talk about here on today's show. Kurt Busch, he might be moving on from Stewart-Haas Racing. He's been linked to Ganassi in the one car. There's been a lot of drama about that this last week. Brad Sweet won the Knoxville Nationals, one of the biggest dirt races of the year. That was a lot of fun to watch. We'll be talking about that throughout the show. And of course, Kevin Harvick got the win at Michigan on Sunday for his 8th win of the year. And so he's off to a great start with his season. But first, let's talk about this Kurt Busch news, because this kind of dominated the headlines over the course of the week.
Yeah, it came out around qualifying on Friday that apparently, and the rumors have been swirling for a couple of weeks that Kurt Busch wasn't going to be back in the 41.
Yeah, well, those rumors have been around for close to 2 years.
For close to 2 years, but it sounds like there might be something on paper now where Kurt Busch is actually leaving Stewart-Haas for Chip Ganassi Racing. But the big kicker here is that Busch is taking Monster with him.
Right.
Monster is the series sponsor, but it's also, it's the sponsor of this car. So it's interesting that Busch is able to take that car with him and go to a lesser ride in the sense of, Chip Ganassi's kind of slower, but it felt like last year that Stewart-Haas just didn't want to pay Kurt Busch, and I could see why. They didn't re-up until December?
Yep. And I think a big part of that is because Monster didn't want to re-up until December. Anyway, I mean, Gene Haas said it on Friday, I believe. Monster doesn't really have any deadlines. They kind of just run by their own schedule. And so they didn't really know last year if Monster was coming back. And if they weren't, they just might as well not have Kurt Busch back. And I don't think if Monster does come back, they will be with Kurt Busch. I think that's pretty clear. But, they're already leaving the sport as the title sponsor. If they leave Kurt Busch as well, he might not have a sponsor, which could open up a whole nother
It's interesting because the story behind the Haas 41 car is that Gene Haas has come out and said a couple of times, it's more profitable if I just run a fourth car, right? Because he uses that car as when some sponsors when he has extra sponsors, he can put them on that car, and then it's his name on the car. And he went out a couple of years ago and got Kurt Busch too. He went and was like, I want Kurt Busch. I want this guy. I will sponsor him personally. And Busch brings along Monsters. So it's interesting because it opens up a seat that, in one hand, you don't have to bring a check to get. And that's really rare in this level, where if Gene Haas has a guy, you don't have to necessarily be a pay-to-play driver driver for the seat, especially with Eric Almirola in the 10 now, bringing Smithfield.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see what happens with that seat. I think it's an okay move. So there's some rumors that Kurt's doing this because Chip Ganassi has a supercars program or something like that he wants to run in. And that he wants one more year in the Cup Series, which would make sense because John Hunter Nemechek looks like he's the Chip Ganassi project right now. And I think next year they'll put him full-time in Xfinity and then bring him up to take that one car.
Right. Yeah, and they've been saying, Gene Haas said this as well. He said, Kurt Busch, I don't think is going to race after 2019. And, how I reacted to that was kind of like this. Does Kurt Busch want to have this kind of broken, the news that he might not race in 2019 by his own team owner? Isn't that something that Kurt might want to kind of do himself?
Well, Kurt Busch is, he's quietly, right now he's fourth in the points, right?
He's having a great year.
With Matt Kenseth, last year, you kind of saw him got pushed out of Joe Gibbs. He wasn't really producing results. He was doing okay, but Kurt Busch is still a top 10 driver. So the idea that, Chip Ganassi's like, well, he wants to retire, or not Gene Haas is like, he wants to retire in 2019. That came out of left field because I know Kurt's getting up there, but he hasn't given any indication that he wants to stop racing. So I feel like there's a lot more to come out in this situation, but it's really interesting to see that news break on a Friday and see how the weekend goes. Because, I feel bad for, like, Jamie McMurray. Like, now Jamie McMurray knows that, he's in a lame duck ride. And, Jamie McMurray has always been that guy who can finish between 12th and 25th. Wins. He pulls a couple big wins out every couple of years, but he doesn't have that magic anymore. So, how do you feel going into work knowing that you're a lame duck and now you're looking for a ride? Like, Casey Kane, when he got fired from Hendrick last year, he at least knew that Hendrick was going to have to pay the contract, right? He knew that he was owed, all right, if I'm getting fired, I'm going to have $5 million in my bank
Murray's
account.
in the last year of his contract.
And he's only he does year-to-year deals. So it's interesting to see because I don't think he's going to land anywhere well. I don't think Murray is going to find a ride.
Yeah, he hasn't really proven himself to be capable of taking over a top ride simply because of what Kyle Larson's been able to do and more or less the same equipment at Chip Ganassi. I'm sure, obviously, that the 42 has a little bit more funds pumped into it than McMurray's, but when Larson and McMurray have been so far apart for the last 3 years, I think that's saying something. And for getting back to Stuart Haas here, I think that they're ready to put Cole Custer in that 41 car. And I think that he's the obvious guy that's going to come up. Obviously he's got the backing with
his dad
Haas,
works in the organization.
His dad works there, so you'd think that he would be the guy that Tony Stewart and Gene Haas are going to want to kind of push into that 41 seat as time goes on. And it feels like Kurt Busch has kind of been, Stewart Haas Racing has kind of been trying to show Kurt Busch the door for the last couple of years.
Well, and it's been really hard because you can't really show a guy the door who's been successful like that either. So
he's got a championship, won the Daytona 500.
But it's interesting to me that he's going to take Monster out with him to that one car because that one car is fully funded with Cessna and McDonald's. So it's interesting, Chip Ganassi will now have, first date. He'll have 2 full sponsored cars. You wonder if Chip is going to think about expanding to a third one. This is one of the big moves that, came out of nowhere that we weren't really expecting. So now it kind of throws the whole NASCAR offseason into dominoes will fall.
This is kind of the kicker to get the silly season underway for sure.
Yeah, because we've had some Bowman renewed, Bubba Wallace renewed, but nobody big had said you had heard nobody big was moving,
right?
And now somebody big's moving. So now this opens the door for a lot of stuff.
It definitely does. So let's get into the weekend that was with a full weekend of action here. We had the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series all going. But first, let's get to the Truck Series. Brett Moffitt wins again, a part-time team, and he's won 4 races
they've been full-time this year. They weren't going to go full-time.
Yeah, but they've missed a couple of races this year.
No, they actually haven't missed a race. It's, they were able to get sponsorship at the last minute for a couple of races.
But still impressive either way.
Well, it's impressive because this is a team that you wouldn't be expecting to compete for a championship, and here we are, right?
Right.
They're running for a championship every single, they're going to be, I would say they're the favorite at this point.
Yeah, those wins get you those playoff points.
He's won 4 straight races, so, but yeah. No, I think he's done really well this year. My point about Brett Moffitt that I was going to make was that, I think he should get a chance to work his way back up the ladder if he wants to, right? Because he kind of got a bad deal with Michael Waltrip Racing, and then he had that stint with Front Row Racing where they put him in a car and he wasn't ready yet. And now I think he's matured as a driver. Now I think he's ready to race in Xfinity and Cup. I think he could do really well. He's done really well. What a good finish, though. What a good finish ruined by awful announcing. Oh, man, it just was like... I've seen more people excited at the DMV. And this, you're going to get a side-by-side finish. It was a wonderful
Welch
finish.
Makes my ears bleed.
Vince Welch is awful.
Anyway, it was a really good race, and the Truck Series at Michigan never seems to disappoint. Last year with Bubba Wallace winning, and then this year with the side-by-side photo finish, the Truck Series is going to be a lot of fun as we get down there. The rest of the results, Moffitt won, obviously. Johnny Sauter was second. John Hunter Nemechek third, and you'd think this would be John Hunter Nemechek's last year with in the Truck Series. Hopefully he can move up next year full-time with the 42. Noah Gragson, another great talent, was fourth, and Todd Gilliland was fifth. So in the point standings for the Truck Series, Johnny Sauter still leads that. Noah Gragson right behind him, and Grant Enfinger in third. So Let's get on to the Xfinity Series now. Back at another road course, their second straight road course race at Mid-Ohio. And Justin Allgaier came out on top of that one. What were your initial reaction to that?
So much fun to watch. That was such, Austin Cindric it was kind of a stinker for Austin Cindric in the sense of like he was winning the whole race and then he pulls this out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Allgaier comes out of nowhere and beats Cindric. It was a lot of fun to watch. The TV product, that was such a good TV product where all day you watch. And it's like there was something going on in the field. There were people going off. There was a lot of fun. I like the idea of the Xfinity Series doing the road courses because they do 3 out of the last couple of tracks going to the playoffs are road courses.
Right.
So, Mid-Ohio was a lot of fun to watch.
And going into it now, as we look at the Xfinity Series points, this is a tight battle. I mean, look at this. Christopher Bell is obviously up front. He had the winning streak there. And then Elliott Sadler, Daniel Hemrick, Cole Custer, and Justin Allgaier all within 3 points of each other battling for second. This is going to be a lot of fun as the playoffs come up.
Yeah,
and the championship comes around.
Well, looking at those points, Christopher Bell, I would say, is your favorite at this point. But Justin Allgaier has been really good. Allgaier's got a couple of those wins. And Hemrick has been very quiet. Nobody's talking about him, but he's had a really good year.
And he's still looking for that first Xfinity Series win as well.
And I think Christopher Bell has got your chance. But looking at your Final Four, I think it'll be Bell. I think it'll be Allgaier. I think it'll be Sadler and either Custer or Hemrick. But it's going to be a lot of fun going down the stretch because these guys have been really good this year. And my favorite thing about the Xfinity playoffs is that Cup guys aren't allowed to race in it anymore. Right. And that'll make it so much fun because you see the races where there are no Cup guys. Like, it's a lot of fun to watch. I had a lot of fun watching Mid-Ohio. I had a lot of fun seeing a guy who you don't normally expect to see at the front. So I'm excited for the playoffs. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch, and I'll be tuning in. I think Christopher Bell will win. I think he'll follow the path.
Shown so much talent.
He's just so fast. He's got so much speed. I think unless something goes really wrong, I think he's gonna. I'm not gonna say walk his way to the Xfinity Championship, but I think he'll follow the line of like Suarez and Byron, who will win the Xfinity Championship and be in a Cup ride next year.
Yeah, but then the question comes, where do you put him? Which is just an entire different topic all in itself. But I think Elliott Sadler is going to be a guy that you really need to watch as this thing progresses. Because remember last year, Elliott Sadler was running down a championship. He had William Byron in his sights in the final race at Homestead as the laps closed down, and then Ryan Preece kind of got in his way a little bit. It was an interesting situation.
And Elliott Sadler,
depending on who you see it from.
No rumors about Elliott Sadler. He's out of a ride next year. The big thing that I've seen is that One Main Financial is leaving, so Elliott Sadler is going to not have his big sponsor. And then Trevor Bayne to the one is what I've heard a lot of. So
it would make sense, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how heavy Sadler goes.
Especially if Bayne brought Advocare with him.
Yeah, I think Bayne is Advocare is with Bayne as a sponsor. So wherever Bayne goes, Advocare will go. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens because this might be Sadler's last, chance at a competitive at an Xfinity Championship. And for a guy
he's come so close.
For a guy who's won a lot of races and has done well at the Cup level, even, it's an interesting way to go out because it's an unglorious way to go out if you don't win a championship on your way out the door.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be in the back of his mind as we get closer to the Homestead. I honestly think Elliott Sadler is going to give Christopher Bell a big time run for his money as we get closer to that. Yeah. So moving on to a bit of a new topic. We haven't really talked about this yet on this show. Dirt racing, the Knoxville Nationals. This is something I'm not all that familiar with dirt racing, and that's simply because it's not on TV all that much. No. There's no coverage of it really anywhere unless you're really searching for it. But Jeff Gluck was there, a really good NASCAR writer. Jeff Gluck was there. He was live tweeting the whole thing. He put out a couple of really good articles. I suggest that you guys go check that out.
JeffGluck.com, really easy to spell. And also, Jeff, I will make the pitch that Jeff is he's a different type of journalist because he's funded by his fans. I pay $10 a month, right? You pay, it's Patreon, you pay what you do. Yeah. And I think it's provided a really nice, fresh perspective to have the fans because when you're paying for your coverage, it's like, I'm getting good coverage out of the website. I'm getting a lot of good coverage because I'm getting what I pay for. And he was at the Knoxville Nationals, and it was really fun to follow along with. And I want to see more dirt racing. Like dirt racing, Eldora, the Nationals, it's been a lot of fun to watch. I want more dirt.
Yeah.
I love dirt racing.
And so the Knoxville Nationals winged sprint cars were the feature there, and this was a really good battle between three guys who have been around it for a long time. You had Brad Sweet, who races for Casey Kane, and he's been there a long time. He had never won this race before. And then you have Donnie Schatz, who races for Tony Stewart, another former NASCAR driver. And Donnie's won this race 11 times, I believe, and he was right there as well. And then you have Kyle Larson, who's right there competing for wins every week in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. So, and these guys were just winging it around this track, and it was a lot of fun to watch. We did put the highlights of the race up on our Twitter account at Inside Groove TV, so go check those out. But this was a lot of fun to watch, and while taking a look at this race, one thing came to my mind, and that was, should dirt racing get more exposure on the national networks like NBC and Fox?
Well, I don't think it would hurt. I think what NASCAR can do, because you look at TV contracts nowadays, they're locked into 2024 for everybody, but I really think that K&N Racing, now that they've purchased ARCA, ARCA Racing, dirt racing, I think there's a really good chance. You got the wheel and modifieds when they're on pavement, I think there's a really good market to just have some dirt racing, right? Have some dirt racing, throw this together with your NASCAR package, put it on YouTube, put it on the app. Hey, if it was a matter of I pay $5 a month and I get all this extra lower tier racing, I'm a big enough fan where I would do it. I would throw some money towards that and be able to watch that. And I think dirt racing is a lot of fun, and I think it's a good way to invest in the product. But I'd love to, Thursday night dirt racing. Like, I would love to watch it on TV, because there's a lot of time where, and this is a market that NASCAR can get into, during the middle of the summer when dirt racing is going on, you don't have a lot on. You got baseball, and I don't want to watch the Mets for the 50th time, right? Like, I want to actually, it'd be nice to be able to flip to something. And the heats are really quick, and they can keep you interested, and you can get to know some people and watch them work their way up. Kyle Larson's story gets in front of you quicker because you know who he is, and you root for them.
Yeah, all these guys who came up through dirt, Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, just a couple of examples.
Casey Kane.
Yeah, these guys, and I personally love it. I would love to see kind of a NASCAR style approach to some of these races. I don't think all of them need to get the national coverage, but I mean the bigger races, the Chili Bowl and Knoxville Nationals. These are races that really should be televised live on places that you can look up, that you can find just on your cable package.
Here's what you do. You take those, 4 or 5 big races over the course of the year, you put those on a national, you put those on NBCSN, right? Yeah. You put or FXX or FX1, right? Yeah. FS1. And then what you do is that you take those big races and then you put the rest of the season that they're running, and then you put those on the stream only, digital only, but you have the big races in front of crowds, and you get the whole package, and you get 20 races you can watch during the summer, but the big ones, if I had a chance to watch Knoxville this past weekend, I would have been watching it. I wasn't going to pay for the pay-per-view, but I would have watched it if it was on an accessible app that I could have found. But I'd love an excuse to watch some of these races on a Wednesday or Thursday night, because there's not a lot on. Yeah. Once again, I'm a NASCAR nerd, I'm a racing nerd. I'm the type of guy who watches first practice on a Thursday. Or practice at 12 o'clock on a Friday. I'll have it on in the background if I'm doing something, but I like the idea of seeing these races televised. They need to be televised. You're losing out money, you're losing out eyes. Yeah. Sponsors aren't going to say no. You get more. It increases the value of a sponsorship.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you see these big corporate companies backing the sprint car drivers. I mean, Brad Sweet, for example, he was backed by Napa, the winner of the race. I mean, there's no reason why it can't. The only two ways to watch or listen to this race was if you wanted to watch it, you had to pay pay-per-view. If you wanted to listen, it was on MRN. But I mean, at the same time, a big-time race like that, if it was NASCAR, there's no way that it wouldn't just be available to watch for the public. So that kind of stuff, it would just be so great for the sport. And NASCAR fans, they love dirt racing too.
Yeah, no.
So it would be great for everybody.
I'd watch it. I would love to watch it, and I think it'd be wonderful. And I think, a sponsor like Napa, who, it doesn't cost a lot of money to sponsor these little cars because they're not as big. But, sponsor like Napa, that's just more exposure, man. Like, that's more brand. Like, that's what you want. More product placement. You want that.
So just another side note about Knoxville before we get on to the next topic. It was the second closest finish in the history of the race. 58 races run, and Brad Sweet beat Donnie Schatz to the line by just a couple car lengths, and on a green-white checkered finish of all things. So that was great. YouTube highlights are up on our Twitter account at Inside Groove TV. Go check those out. Definitely an entertaining night at Knoxville. But the Cup Series was at the kind of less entertaining 2-mile track of Michigan International Speedway on Sunday, where, surprise, surprise, a member of the Big Three won again. Kevin Harvick with his 7th win of the season, and it's another win for the Big Three. He's getting closer and closer to 10 wins this year. Last time we saw a driver win 10 races in a season was Jimmy Johnson all the way back in 2007. Do you think Harvick can pull that off this year?
Boom, confetti. I think he's going to pull it off. I mean, how many races do we have left? 13,
quite a
14?
bit, yeah, 13.
We still have half season. Like, he's going to win 2 more times. Unless if he gets thrown into a Starcom Chevy, he's going to win 2 more. And he still might find a time to pull it off at that point. He's going to find 2 more wins. There comes a point where you just kind of accept some dominance from somebody. Last year, Martin Truex Jr. got to the point where, wow, he's just so good.
Truex only won 8 races all of last year. Harvick, before we're even in the chase, Harvick has 7 already. So.
And I mean, he won by 8 seconds last night, yesterday. It wasn't even I wasn't even watching towards the end because I had a meeting, but I was just like, oh yeah, Harvick's gonna win. I'm not even paying attention to that anymore. I do think it is a little concerning sometimes where it's one guy is just out here dominating. But I don't know. It's been a lot of fun watching the Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick. And we saw it in person at Loudon, where they bumped, where Harvick moved him out of the way. But it's been a lot of fun to watch on the TV perspective because you got a storyline, right? You got those Big Three drivers who have done really well, and it gives you something to watch for. But yeah, it was a snoozer. I don't like the 1.5 2-milers. I don't. Yeah. I do think Michigan is a little different. I think Michigan's a good track.
Michigan's kind of fun because it's so fast.
It's so fast and tire wear, man. You can have. I think one race at Michigan would be perfect. I think that's the perfect thing. You have one race at Michigan. It's a
midsummer.
It's a 500-miler in the middle of the summer. You maybe do it at night. You maybe do it in the middle of the day.
A night race at Michigan would be pretty cool.
I think you could do it halfway through the day. You do it like you do Charlotte. You start at 4, you end at 7:30, 8-ish. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be challenging for the drivers. But yeah, Harvick won again. Am I enjoying seeing 3 guys dominate each week? Kinda not. I think watching all 3 guys win and dominate is fun to a point, but it does suck when you have a driver who is going to 15th is a win. That gets a little annoying as you get through the season.
Yeah. So as we take a look at the full results from the Monster Energy Series at Michigan, we saw Kevin Harvick obviously the win. Brad Keselowski, a much-needed 2nd place. That team has really struggled the last couple of weeks. Pocono, they crashed. New Hampshire, they had the brake failure, I believe it was.
Yep.
Kyle Busch, 3rd. Good run for Austin Dillon in 4th. He hasn't really been in any conversation since winning the Daytona 500.
Yeah, Austin Dillon finishing 4th there. Interesting that RCR unloaded with a lot of speed,
Right.
The Chevys haven't been fast all year, but I think that's the fact,
Newman qualified top 10, too.
They both qualified top 10, and it's interesting because Dillon's in the playoffs, but, unloaded with a lot of speed off the trailer, and they were able to do something with it. So I don't know if that was just for one weekend with RCR or if we should expect them to keep doing it as they move forward, but I don't know. It was interesting to see how they did this past weekend.
Well, our RCR, I think, at this point is figuring, okay, we're just a few weeks away from from the playoffs starting here. We got to do something because Austin Dillon. We know that Austin Dillon's going to make the playoffs because he won at Daytona. They have kind of had all year to make that team competitive, and they haven't really done that. Now He's got a top 5 finish under his belt. They've got to build on this going into the playoffs, take this momentum, and maybe Austin Dillon can do something in the playoffs. Nobody's going to go out there and expect him to win a championship.
No, but get to the round of 12. That's an accomplishment.
But yeah, I don't think that RCR wants to take that legendary 3 car, get into the playoffs, and go out in the first round.
Nobody does. And so interesting thing that I saw this past weekend. Ryan Newman hasn't had his win that he sneaks out of nowhere yet.
Yeah.
Dark horse pick for Brickyard. Just off the top. We're a couple weeks away, but just think about that now.
I could definitely see it happen. He's won there before.
But he's Ryan Newman does this thing where he gets really sneaky and always finishes in the top 12. And we just finally saw the speed this past weekend. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting with Richard Childress Racing because none of their affiliates are doing well either. Yep. Bubba Wallace is struggling for top 20s. Ty Dillon is trash.
We'll get to Ty Dillon in a second.
The JTG cars have been pretty slow this year, too.
We'll get to them later on as well.
It was interesting that out of nowhere, I looked at qualifying, I was like, they must be cheating. There's no way you pick up that much speed in a weekend. Something must be wrong. But apparently his car is past post-race tech.
Yep.
They passed, so they found something. What it is, I don't know anybody knows. But they found something and they went really fast this past weekend.
And for their sake, you hope that they can kind of keep that up going into the playoffs. Because I personally love to see Austin Dillon do well in the playoffs. Simply because seeing that 3-car do well is really fun to see.
It is a fun thing, as an old school NASCAR fan, both of us. It's fun to see that car competing. I don't like Austin Dillon. I don't want Austin Dillon winning, but it's nice to see him not be awful.
Right, for sure. So let's take a quick look at the Cup Series points after Michigan here as we get ready to head to Bristol next week. Kyle Busch still in the lead, but Kevin Harvick closing the gap a little bit. It's down 8 points from last week, down to 62. Then Martin Truex Jr., the third member of the Big Three, falling back a little bit, 144 back. Kurt Busch, we talked about him, still very competitive this year, and Clint Boyer back there as well. They're pretty much out of it as for winning the regular season championship. Kyle Busch pretty much does have this locked up.
He does. He's got to have a couple bad weeks in a row.
Right.
We're going to Bristol, I think it's Kyle Busch's turn to win this week as far as the Big Three goes because Bristol is one of his tracks. But, I think, regular season, I think Kyle Busch is your regular season champion. That comes with, 10 bonus points for the playoffs, I think? Yep. So that's something you want to race for if you're Kevin Harvick. Right. You want to try to catch him. But at this point, I think unless if we get an unexpected winner, your playoff field is basically set.
It really is. Let's take a quick look at the battle for 16th here as we get ready for the playoffs, just a couple of races away. And like you said, Dustin, 62 points separates 16th and 17th as well. Ricky Stenhouse really has not shown the speed.
Did you spell Suarez wrong?
To get in there. Suarez is spelled incorrectly, but that's okay.
Spelled incorrectly. We'll fix that next week.
Yeah, Daniel Suarez. But Suarez is the guy who's been running better.
He's been running a lot better, and I think Suarez,
he's going to need a win.
He's going to need a win, but once again, Indianapolis, is what a track that you can get it at. What are the last races going? Because you got Richmond. That's the first.
Richmond's the first race. It goes. We've still got Darlington. We've still got Bristol, and I believe there's one more race.
Let me look. Let's confirm
Indianapolis is still going on.
Where Dustin says something dumb and tells you that there's not a race this weekend when there's actually a race. So yeah, we have 3. No, I don't want notifications. So we have Brickyard, Bojangles, Bass Pro this weekend. So we have 3 races until we get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Darlington's hard, but Indianapolis is going to be a wild card because you have a guy like Suarez who's got a fast car. Right. Paul Menard on that bubble has his only win comes at the Brickyard. He's got a chance to win there. And then Bristol this weekend, Bristol is a place where, we saw a guy like Bubba Wallace lead laps this year.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get off the hauler at Bristol.
And Bristol's one of those races where if you're looking to make up points, you've got to make up points. You've got to Because, I mean, anything can happen at one of those races where, you know, somebody could get in a wreck. We saw Ryan Blaney in the spring leading the race and get taken out by a bunch of lap cars.
Taken out while in first. Like at Bristol, like in the general knowledge is if you're in the top 5 at any track, you're safe. At Bristol, you are not safe. Like no matter where you are, like you are going to get ran over at some point. And I think it leads to some great racing. I think we have a chance to have a lot of fun. And I think there are a lot of, you know, this week is your last real fun week because Darlington will be a straightforward track.
Darlington's a fun weekend, but the racing, I don't think Darlington is there for the racing.
The racing is meh, and Darlington knows this. Darlington, and we'll have a little more on that in a couple weeks, but everybody knows the racing at Darlington is okay. Sometimes it's good, but you're there for the throwbacks. But like these last 2 races, you know, Indy, which last year was a wreck fest. It was survival of the fittest. Casey Kane won because his car wasn't torn up at the end.
Right.
And now this is your last race going into the playoffs. Like somebody will get moved out of the way at 180 miles per hour. I will guarantee it now.
In Indianapolis, I think I love the move to put Indy as the last race before the playoffs because you look back, you rewind 10 years and just look at how important the Brickyard 400 was as a race. It was right up there with Daytona. And now, you know, Kyle Busch won it a couple of years in a row by leading virtually every lap. And I think that, you know, the pageantry of that race has kind of gone away. And the importance of it has gone away as well. So I love the move by NASCAR here to put it back in put it in a really important spot in the season. And that's kind of going to get the drivers going and, like you said, move somebody out of the way at 180 miles per hour. That's what we watch for. So I love that move. I think that's going to be a really interesting race.
Well, and I think, you know, part of Indianapolis' problem is that it's not built for stock cars. It's built for Indy cars, but it's still a special race. It's still in the heartland. Making that a prime race before you go into your playoffs I like it a little more. You know, Richmond has 2 races a year. Indy gets 1 race. You get the pageantry. You get that going. The weekend after Darlington, you have, you know, and it lets you know that you're okay to take Las Vegas off because I hate Las Vegas as the opening playoff race. But I think the last, you know, we got 3 weeks left. We do have a bye week. We have, you know, this week, then the next week we have off. We have 3 weeks left, and it's going to get interesting, I think. You know, I don't think anybody's safe. I think people can turn around and get a win, but we're going to have some fun.
Yeah. So before we get off the Cup Series topics here, we know what now Ty Dillon.
We know what he hit now.
But I mean, what in the world happened there? That was crazy.
You know, a battery fell out of a back marker, but wow. Talk about a dude who is just having, I don't know if it's Ty Dillon, I don't know if it's Germain Racing, I don't know if it's the Camaro, I don't know what it is, but the Geico car sucks. Like, this team is awful. And you would think a team with a full sponsorship between Geico and their sponsor that we cannot mention on the air because you have to be 21 plus, whatever. But Geico, like, wow, this car is bad. And like Ty Dillon has ran some Xfinity races. He's not even a factor. Like, I think Ty Dillon is a bad NASCAR driver who does not deserve a ride at this point. Yeah,
I mean, obviously it was tough to see him go up into the wall. And, you know, I think when they showed that on TV, obviously, if you don't know what we're talking about here, Ty Dillon ran over a battery of Timmy Hill yesterday and pretty much destroyed the inside of his race car, sent him immediately right up into the wall, ran right through his radiator and all that, and just a big mess and a really hard hit for him, which was and I think that was probably one of the more interesting parts of the Michigan race was what did Ty Dillon hit, but yeah, I think you bring up a good point.
I actually haven't seen it yet because I was out. Oh man, that's a hard hit. Oh wow.
Dustin's watching it live.
I didn't see it because I saw what he hit, but I didn't see him actually go into the wall. And he just that's always hard because you hit something and then you lose control. So you're going 200 miles, right? You're just going into the wall. You have
no idea. Yeah, you have no control over the car whatsoever. But yeah, I have to agree with your point. The Dillon brothers, I think both of them, honestly, in the Xfinity series have kind of not shown up, which shows something when you're talking about the Cup Series.
But Austin Dillon, there's always been this argument of which one earned, granddaddy's money buying a ride.
I think Austin Dillon
won an Xfinity championship.
Yeah.
He earned his chance to be a Cup driver, and he's done okay with it. But Ty Dillon kind of I don't know. You look at the Dillon brothers and you look at what's wrong with NASCAR sometimes, but it's not. They're not. I don't hate them.
It's their fault.
No, it's not their fault.
There's nothing they can do about it. They were born with all that money. They're going to make the most out of it, I guess. But it stinks for the guys who Jeffrey Earnhardt, Corey LaJoie. You think about Ross Chastain.
Earnhardt's bad. Ross Chastain, I'll give you, but
that could have a better ride. But don't because there's guys that were born with
millions of dollars
in their hand.
Basically born with the ability to have daddy fund a NASCAR team for them, right? And that it sucks because I think somebody could do a really good job in that 13 car, and it stinks because when Geico decides they want to leave the sport, it's going to be there's a sponsor, there's a full-time sponsor that could have been on a good car that wasn't on a good car and now has a reason
they
to
left
leave.
Because they lost a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. Ford unveiled the brand new 2019 Mustang for the Monster Energy Cup Series this past week, and it looks pretty nice. They had Tony Stewart bring it out, but my problem with it was it looks exactly the same as the car this year, just with different stickers on it.
Yeah, it doesn't look. I don't know. I think one of the things that has happened in NASCAR, and I think Toyota started it, was we want the car to look like the car you can drive on the street. The specs. The specs aren't going to be the same, right? You know that you're not going to be able to get in a Mustang down at the Ford dealership and plug Ford dealership. If you want to sponsor us, we're always looking for underwriting. But you're not going to be able to go to the Ford dealership and just get in a car and just go for it, right? But the Toyota, the Camry, what Toyota did a couple years ago was that they modeled the Camry's body after the Cup car, right? They modeled the design after the Cup car, and it sold really well. So then Chevy was like, well, we're not producing the SS anymore, which is a fabulous car, by the way. If you actually want to drive a wonderful muscle car for $35,000, a Chevy SS, it's actually really cool. But nobody bought it. It's like a cult classic now, but nobody bought them. So they got to switch to the Camaro, which is awful. I hate Camaros. So Ford is continuing this trend of, we got to have a muscle type of car because Ford is getting rid of cars. If you followed what they're doing in Detroit, they are getting rid of all mid-sized sedans. They are going to small cars and trucks. They are, muscle cars here or there too, but they're getting rid of the trucks. So it's kind of what are you going to do? You're getting rid of your cars. So they're moving to the Mustang. It's bland.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I like the idea of the Fusion, I like the idea of the body of the Fusion, it looks a little boring now, but everybody's trying to do this cool thing with the front end, and it's all right, the Mustang is fine. It looks fine. I don't know if, I don't know why you would change, though, at this point.
Yeah, they've had so much success this year. I just don't get the change. I think for a while, Ford was kind of behind, but now they've kind of figured out this body and the whole aerodynamics thing with the Fusion body. And Kevin Harvick has 7 wins this year.
I think Ford, I think Chevy shot themselves in the foot by moving to the Camaro. And I think, you're seeing it every week. And now I see, Chevy's got 2 wins. Chase Elliott on a road course and Austin Dillon on a super speedway.
By luck,
by turning a Ford with a couple laps to go, right? But no, it's really interesting. But I want to see how they do next year, because if a team can figure out, it will be Stuart Haas. But they're going to be behind. And I want to see what Ford team figures it out first, too, because, they've all been doing development on it. They all know what it's going to look like now. Now we see what team can figure something out and find speed first, and I think it might it might accidentally level the playing field for everybody.
That'd be nice to see. So, Tony Stewart, we talked about how he drove the new Ford Fusion out. He actually came out this week and said he might be open to doing another Indy 500, which is, we all know how important that race is to him growing up in Indiana. Would you like to see Stewart run another 500?
I would. Tony Stewart got his start in IndyCar, as everybody knows. Dirt IndyCar did the thing. I would love to see it. I don't like his jab at Danica about being a sideshow, because I think Danica actually had a chance to win that race, because she qualified well in Indy. Yeah. She's won a race in Indy before, not the 500, but
she was with a decent team.
She was a decent. I don't think that was a sideshow. I think the media makes that a sideshow, and I feel bad for someone like Danica, because she gets made a sideshow everywhere because she's a woman. And she's the first to do this, the first to do that. So I don't think that's fair to call her a sideshow, but I would love to see Tony Stewart. I'd love to see it. I think he would be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if he'd win. I don't think he would win, but it'd be fun to see how he qualifies, see how he does.
Right. And then obviously another big piece of news from this past week with JTG Dirty Racing. I mean, these guys, it kind of seems like the whole future of that team is up in the air, with rumors to Daniel Hemrick, Ryan Preece, are AJ Allmendinger there, and Chris Buescher, are they there or out, or what's going on?
Well, I think some news, you got the news I sent you this morning about it, about Adam Stern. Sounds like Ryan Preece is going to be replacing AJ Allmendinger in the 47, and that it'll be Preece and Buescher. And that's interesting to me, because, JTG is one of these rides where, fully funded ride, you don't have to bring a paycheck. And for Ryan Preece, rumors have it that Noah Gragson is going to be the guy next year at Joe Gibbs in that 18 car. So, he didn't have a place to go. He basically doesn't have a place to go. He's got the money to buy a couple of races, but now he took the ultimate gamble last year, where he's like, I'm going to put myself in a car for 3 races. I'm going to see if I can show people that I have talent. And he
finished second and first.
he did it, and then he earned a 3rd race. He did really well, and now he's done it again, 9 top 10s in 10 races. So now he's gotten the attention of a Cup team that wants to invest in their team. JTG wants to win. They are mad that they're not winning. Allmendinger doesn't miss a shift at Sonoma, and they have a chance to win. They're going to put him in a ride, and what a wonderful story. You got to root for the guy, going to the Hendrick Alliance next year. And this guy who had one chance, the money was running out. He had a chance to do it. He did it, and it's going to work. And that's nice to see. It's good to see talent make its way back up to the top.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see, because, Buescher has done good. He's done good this year. He's a good driver. He won an Xfinity. Well, he didn't win. His brother won, but he finished second in an Xfinity championship. I think he's a really good driver. He's good with the brand. So it'll be interesting. Dinger did wear out his welcome, though, because if you're going to be a road course specialist, you got to deliver some top 10s at road courses. And this is the thing. He hasn't come through. He had that one win at Watkins Glen that earned him a contract extension, and he hasn't come through ever since.
Right, yeah, for sure. But my question, another question I have out of this is, JTG has really struggled, especially in the last 2 years. Do you think that they kind of expanded to 2 cars a little bit too soon?
Yes and no. I mean, if you look at JTG Racing, right? You look at how they do, you look at what they do, you look at what they've done. They sell a lot of sponsorship, because they sell to brands, right? They have this model where they get 5 companies to pay a small amount to be on the car, or they go to the supermarket, and the supermarket decides to sell the space to the companies that go to the supermarket. So they were overfilling with sponsorship, and I think it was a good move, because they identified a driver that they could have gotten on the cheap. They didn't pay, Chris Buescher, he was on loan that first year, and they identified a need. So, a year or two too early, I would think, performance-based wise, but no, it was the right decision. I don't think expanding to 2 cars is a bad idea, because if you can sell sponsorship, if you can fill 2 cars, run 2 cars. You make a better profit that way. You make more money that way. So it'll be interesting to see how they do next year because they are part of the RCR Alliance. Right. And the Camaro switch really hurt those teams that were already going to be mid-pack and made them struggle. But they've gotten, they're a top 20 team. They get 15 to 23rd every race. They come in with speed. They're not at the back of the field. But it'll be interesting next year when they have 2 drivers who they are expecting to compete with because Brad, one of the owners of, and I can't say his last name, but one of the owners, but former NBA player, one of the owners was talking about how they were expecting to win this year. They are pumping money into that program.
That's another thing. I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, all right, they have full sponsorship for every single race they run this year for both teams. Why are they a 30th place car every week? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So I think I think they've got to make the driver move. Not with Buescher because I think there's a lot of potential there.
He's talented. He's young.
He has the Xfinity Series title, and he's done well at the level so far. He's got the Cup Series win as well. So I think that he can, if they work with him in that 37, he'll be good. But I love the move to the move to put Ryan Preece in the 47 because for a long time it's been, okay, this 47 car is going to be competitive at 2 races a year and the rest of them he's going to run 25th and then get mad when he's not in competition for the playoff standings. So I do like the move and I would love to see JTG become competitive within the next 5 or so years.
I think they're going to become competitive. There are teams that are just hanging on, like Roush Fenway Racing, Richard Petty Racing, Richard Petty Motorsports, But then there are teams that are pumping the money in to try to be that next winner, and I think JTG's got a chance to do it. I would love to see, and this is something to watch on to, I think JTG, if a new manufacturer comes to the sport, I think they'll come through them. Yeah. I think they should because they'll have the infrastructure and they're like, hey, we got 2 teams. You could get your cars in. You could always have some 2 teams of sponsorship. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that team. I think they can compete for some top 10s next year. But I've seen, it's pretty interesting that some of the drivers had some real outlaying. Bubba Wallace was talking about how we'll try to be 8th to 12th. That's the goal. And way off. I think some of the Chevy teams have realized that they needed to pump the brakes on some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, you talk about the struggles of these Chevy teams, and I don't think it's as much as the teams as it is the manufacturer as a whole. Look at Kyle Larson last year compared to Kyle Larson this year. Larson has no wins yet, and he really hasn't been in competition for many wins this year. There's a couple of instances, but he just hasn't been there, and you would love to see the Chevys kind of get going. Dustin said they only have 2 wins this year at tracks where, power isn't really all that important. I mean, at Daytona, if you can catch a lucky break like Austin Dillon did and take out a Ford on the last lap and then Watkins Glen, where if you have a good driver, you're probably going to win that race. Not to mention Chase Elliott he lucked out with Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin running into problems on pit road.
You give Kyle Busch 10 more laps, Chase Elliott does not have his first win.
Right.
Kyle Busch finished 10th in that race? He recovered really well.
He finished 3rd in that race.
He did?
I believe, yeah.
No.
Something like that.
But he came out and he started the very back end of the field. He came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think Chevy used to always be your driver, your points champion as far as
you look at it, Chevy won every championship from 2005 to 2012 when Brad Keselowski won with Dodge because Tony Stewart won, and then Jimmy Johnson won 6 in a row, or 5 in a row, or whatever, and then Tony Stewart won again, all with Chevy. So Chevy's been the dominant team for really a long time.
Chevy took that for granted. Toyota is the best thing that happened in NASCAR because Toyota understood the development and understood how to make it worthwhile as a manufacturer and have pumped a lot of money into, R&D because they see the aspect of being an owner of a Toyota and having this advantage. They have figured it out, and now Chevy has just been going we're Chevy, we're good. And it's Ford, I think I've seen, Ford has also been caught in this thing where they haven't done a lot to keep pumping in money to the sport because I don't think they understand how to get money out of it. American car companies suck at making money while the Japanese car company does a great job. Go figure. Welcome to America. Great products. But it's interesting to see because now Toyota is forcing these guys to put money into the cars or fall behind and lose sponsorship and lose this and lose that. And
All right, so real quickly here, let's get to some local stuff. There was the Triple Crown. There's 3 Triple Crown races at Thunder Road for the Allen Lumber Street Stock Division, which is pretty much the second tier division like the Xfinity Series at Thunder Road. And this has been a lot of fun. I caught one of the races in person. The third race, the championship race for those guys, was Thursday night, and Joel Hodgson took the win there. And he is, I believe, the points leader there, still over Joe Stefan and Cameron Willett in the Flying Tiger division. As we look at the late models at Thunder Road, Trampus Demers, there's 12 races of 14 are complete, and Trampus Demers still leading there. Scott Dragon kind of falling back. He's 13 points back. And then Jason Corliss is still hanging around 18 back, and Cody Blake's kind of fallen out of the championship hunt back and forth. Big Thunder Road kind of going through a big 3 as well with their late model division, and those guys have won the majority of the races this year. For a total of 5 races won by Demers, Dragon, and Corliss, 7 if you add on Cody Blake. So Thunder Road getting interesting, the season coming to a close very quickly there. Quickly on to Airborne and the mini mods. We saw Cameron Gadju, who we had on the show last week.
We had on our inaugural show.
He got another win in the feature for the mini mods, beating Josh Laporte there, and so I believe he's in the points lead. We'll check that in just a second. In the 358 modified, Steve Bernier won. He's the points leader there. Strictly Stocks, Caleb Torville with the win. Patrick Picotin with the win in the Sportsman modifieds. And a shout out there to Dillon Robtoy, a local driver from Swanton, who we'll have on the show in a couple of weeks here. He finished 4th in that race, driving all the way from 23rd starting spot in a 50-lap race. So really impressive there. And in the Super Stocks, Brent Jarvis with the win there in that race. So the point standings at Airborne, Nick Haywood still leading the Sportsman modified points. He's been around for forever racing at Airborne, and Bucko Branham, another guy who's been there forever, 50 points behind in second. They both have 2 wins on the season. Super Stocks points, Brent Jarvis leading that championship hunt. Josh Laporte is up now on Cameron Gadju by 4 points. Cam cut the lead in half there with just a few races to go in that series. So that's going to be a really fun one to watch as Cam Gadju goes for that championship. 358 mods, Steve Bernier still the points leader there. Strictly Stocks, Sean Walker leading the points standings with 6 wins. And the Sportsman Series, Bucko Branham leading the points there. So all the local stuff getting pretty interesting here as the summer comes down to a close.
Yeah.
Now, another thing kind of tying back to the Knoxville Nationals that we were talking about earlier, the World of Outlaws, the series that runs at Knoxville, they were supposed to be at Airborne back in July, but that race got rained out, unfortunately. But they're saying that they will be back next year. So
they will be. That's good because I can't wait to go to that. I was thinking about going to that, but then it got rained out.
Right.
But it'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of local action going on. But now it's time to get ready for some Bristol racing. Xfinity trucks are there on Wednesday, I believe.
So it's
Xfinity Series Friday and Cup
Thursday,
Series
Friday, Saturday,
Thursday,
which
Friday,
I love.
Saturday.
Nothing's more fun than a Thursday night truck race. I am so excited for that. That's just my personal opinion, though. I don't know. I'm probably busy Thursday night too, actually. Yeah, no, they have a wonderful mixer here at Northwest Access TV Thursday night. Come.
So if you're not watching the truck race, go to the mixer here.
Come here to Northwest Access TV. Get your tickets at the door. They cost something, I don't know, Zach.
Like $5, I think it is.
Yeah. Zach will tell you whatever.
But yeah, that's going to be an interesting race. Xfinity race on Friday night is always so much fun.
Wreckfest, can't wait.
You usually have a ton of wrecks, a ton of Cup guys coming down and just beating and banging with each other. That's always a lot of fun to see. Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch, that rivalry originated down in Bristol a long time ago. So that'll be a fun race to watch. And then, of course, one of my favorite races of the year is the Saturday night Bristol race for the Cup Series.
The wonderful, it's sponsored by Bass Pro Shops. It's going to be a wonderful race. Looking at the entry list right here, the thing about Bristol is that it gives you some fun storylines every year, and there's a guy or two that come out of nowhere. Beginning of the year, Starcom with Landon Castle got their best finish. Bubba Wallace led some laps. A couple years ago, Matt DiBenedetto got a sixth place finish, his best finish with BK Racing. There's always a couple of fun stories to have at Bristol. There's always a couple of contenders taken out. I cannot wait to watch this live.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And now we're going to kind of get into something that we haven't done yet on this show. We didn't do it last week.
I messed up last week, and I was like, no, Michigan's not this weekend. I lied. So Nick lost a segment. That's on me. I feel bad for my guys.
Okay, Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
We are going to do a fantasy draft here. Now, bear with us. This is our first time doing it, but I'm going to let Dustin go first. We're each going to pick 5 drivers.
5.
Right. That we're going to follow through the Cup race at Bristol, and whoever has the lowest combined finish of those 5 drivers will be the winner for the week.
Oh, okay.
So
we actually betting on anything here, or?
I think we'll just do it on. Well, I think we'll just do bragging rights for now. I think
so
we should take it easy to begin with.
With the first pick in the Bristol fantasy draft, I'll take Kyle Busch. Easy one. That's an easy one.
He obviously, Kyle Busch won the race last year.
Yep.
Nice showing from Eric Jones though last year.
Nice showing
so
from
that'll be interesting to see as well. So. Man,
you get the next 2 picks because we're doing snake draft.
We're going to do a snake draft. All right. So, you'd think that I would take the rest of the big 3 here. And I think I'm going to take Kevin Harvick.
Okay.
And Eric Jones.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
So I'll let you have Martin Truex because I'm sure you're going to want to wrap up the big 3 there.
I actually get the next 2 picks, too, because we're doing snake draft. I'm going to take Ryan Blaney. He had a really fast car here. I think he could have had a chance to win. He's had a lot of bad luck. And then I'm going to take, I'm not going to take Martin Truex Jr. because Martin Truex Jr. doesn't do well here. I'm going to take Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Stenhouse has really done very well at Bristol in the last few years. So my 3rd and 4th picks, I guess I'll just have to take Truex Jr.
Who are you taking for 4, though?
And, man, this is, I don't know.
It's a tough one.
It's tough, but I think I'm going to go with Kyle Larson because Larson showed a lot of speed at Bristol. He probably should have won the race, and then Kyle Busch gave him the old bump and run at the end of it.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, so I'm going to take Truex, who's really falling down the draft boards this week, and Kyle Larson. So Dustin, with your final
final 2 picks, who is left on the board? You didn't take Brad Keselowski, so I'll take Keselowski. And then, just for the heck of it, let's go with Joey Logano. Logano always does well at Bristol. He's been very good.
He's a Penske homer.
You know what?
All 3 Penske
No,
drivers.
I'm going to take Joey Logano. I'm going to take Clinton Boyer with that 5th pick.
Okay.
I like Clinton Boyer. He's had some good luck on short tracks this year. He'll be fun to watch. If we're going to go any deeper and maybe do a couple of upset picks,
Hey,
Michael
remember,
McDowell.
I still got to make my last pick.
You got to make your last pick? Okay,
I'm going to take Chase Elliott because that team's looked good. They just scored their 4th straight top 10.
Yep. And
they've raced well at Bristol the last couple of years. They've led laps in the last 2 Bristol night races. So I think Chase Elliott is going to be a good 5th pick. I don't think he'll win, but I think he'll be up there.
You got any dark horses for this weekend?
Oh, dark horses.
Give me 3 dark horses.
3 dark horses. Jeez. Well, I think I'm going to take Matt DiBenedetto here because he has been. We know what he can do at Bristol. He finished 6th. Bubba Wallace, another.
Oh, you're taking my dark horse.
And Daniel Suarez, I think, could be another guy that comes out in good equipment. This is going to be his 5th race here now. So
I say I agree with 2 of your dark horse. I agree with the Bubba Daniel because Bubba led laps. Daniel's been good here. Ryan Newman,
Yep.
maybe out of nowhere. Paul Menard has some talent.
Okay.
And we might see Eric Almirola come get his first win this weekend.
That would be really fun to see.
That'd be a lot of fun to watch, but you never know.
All right, so that's all we have for you this week here on the Inside Groove. I'm Nick Mumley. He's Dustin Tanner. We'll be back at you next Monday night at 6 o'clock with a reaction to what's happened this upcoming weekend at Bristol. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching, everybody.